You're listening to Two Guys Talking Wine with Michael Pincus and André Proulx.
After having the good fortune of traveling the world and being exposed to the great Bordeaux's and Burgundies through business, Rich decided in 1990 to buy a house in Napa Valley. It was the closest he could get to wine country without having to fly to France, I think, and enjoy the wines there. So you fell in love with Napa, as I think everybody does. If you've been to Napa, what's not to love about Napa? So you had made several trips there. What do you do when you start making trips there? You start looking at real estate. You found a house up on a big hill that overlooked the valley, the Rutherford AVA, and that property is 107 acres, but you really bought it for the home and the view. At the time, it happened to have 10 acres planted to Cabernet grapes.
That's the voice of Leslie Frank. That's the co-founder of Frank Family Vineyards, and we had a chance to enjoy lunch with her on a lovely day in late September. And I think when you're talking about Napa Valley, she ended that clip talking about Cabernet Sauvignon. You cannot talk about Napa Valley without talking about Cabernet Sauvignon, right?
You cannot.
Okay, I cannot. All right, we're already off to a great start. Come on, Michael.
You've got to talk cab when we're talking Napa. You've always got to talk cab. But there was something else that I think I was shocked more than you.
Yes.
About.
Well, I mean, that's the thing is, like, I am Captain Chardonnay, and like, I know we've spent a lot of years of you taking the piss out of me about my love of Chardonnay, but I am unapologetic of my love of California Chardonnay. Like, that first road trip I took was Route 66 with the detour straight to Chateau Montelena, but when we sat down, we got to have like a really great chat with Leslie all throughout lunch.
See, Napa Chardonnay or California Chardonnay has never been my bailiwick because it has always been too oaky, too big, too rich, and I love acidity and fruit, and I don't want toast and vanilla and caramel. But that Carnero Chardonnay was something completely different.
Yeah, we had the Frank Family Vineyards entry-level Carnero Chardonnay with lunch, but like, one of the things that really peaked, and I need you to admit it as well, like, I know I'm the Chardonnay guy out of the two of us, but like, your curiosity was piqued as well with how passionately Leslie spoke about Chardonnay.
It was interesting to listen to her talk about it, that's for sure.
All right, well, this is a little bit of what she had to say while we were talking about Chardonnay at lunch.
We're very proud of our Chardonnay. We're very proud of all our wines, but we're very proud of our Chardonnay because I think we've established in the market a style that is very approachable and maybe not typical Napa. For a long time, Chardonnays in Napa, I think, got a bad rap, and maybe it was justified. They were too big, too oaky, too buttery. You could drink a glass, but you couldn't drink a bottle. It was just over the top. And we never made Chardonnay like that.
Yeah.
I rest my case.
I mean, she said basically what you said. You forgot that she said that because you haven't heard the clips before this. What I thought was really interesting is she talked about how Frank Family Vineyards makes, at least what she counted, at least 6 different Chardonnays. We are going to have an expert join us to clear up the exact number. We had the Carnero Chardonnay with lunch.
I was very surprised by that. The fruit was like totally up front. The acidity was great, which is something I never expect in California Chard. I'm going to go with never. And it was just a well balanced piece of winemaking.
And when it comes to winemaking, I think my favorite thing when you're sitting down with the owners of wineries, I think it's really important to give credit where credit is due. And I think we see it even in our own backyard in Niagara, where we have some wineries where owners are going to take credit for their winemaking team's work. And it was really nice to hear Leslie give great credit to her winemaker.
We hired a winemaker by the name of Todd Graff, who's been with us for 21 years. And we owe a lot of our success, I think, to Todd, because he really, along with our palates, established a Frank family style.
What do you think of that, Todd?
Yeah, thanks. It was great to hear that from Leslie, and I loved your guys' comments because more than one thing can be true, and we never really sought out the biggest buttery style, but also at the same time, anybody gets into the old ABC, anything but Chardonnay, I think our sales go up. So the more people preach that, the better our wines do. So we're not afraid of and I love all wines too. I love Chardonnay. I'm in that Chardonnay camp. I think you got to if you're making as much Chardonnay as we do. But I like all wines too. So I'm not against any other variety. Just to be for Chardonnay.
So clarify that for us. How many Chardonnays are you making?
Sure, yeah. So when you were saying that, okay, it's not so. It depends. You count Blanc de Blanc sparkling wine. As a Chardonnay.
Sure. Yeah, sure.
Absolutely.
Because there you go. And people go, oh, I wish we'd make one without oak. And I go, I do. It just happens to have bubbles in it. We make the Carneros blend that you tried. Then we have the Lewis Vineyard. We have a reserve Carneros. Then we have Beckstoffer Vineyard from a grower vineyard designate from Carneros also. And then from Sonoma, part of Carneros, Sonoma Coast, San Giacomo Vineyard. So another vineyard designate from another outstanding long-term California farming company.
So that's 5 still and 1 sparkling.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So
and I just want to say, just real quick for the people listening, I was disappointed because I woke up when the special offer came through the LCBO to buy some of the Carneros Chardonnay. It sold out instantly. Like, it was a hotter ticket than a Bruce Springsteen ticket, and I have no idea how that happened.
I think you're fibbing a little bit on that.
No, I'm dead. I am dead.
Oh,
serious.
Andre would have woken up at the ass crack of dawn to get that Chardonnay.
So the offers go for sale promptly at 8:30, and for wines I really want to buy, I log on at 8:30, and when I logged on at 8:30, the inventory was at 0, and I reached out to Hannah. I was just like, was there a glitch? Like, did something happen at the warehouse? Like, did the wines not make it to sale? And she's like, nope, just sold out. And it was just like completely mind-blowing. But as a really great consolation prize, because I don't want this conversation to be just about Chardonnay. Like, just so you know, Todd, we're gonna talk a little bit about like where winemaking in Napa Valley is going, how things are changing. You know, I think there's this fellow whose last name rhymes with Smarker that's influence is starting to wane a little bit in the area. But before we get into that, I do want to talk a bit about the Chardonnay that is in Michael and Mai's glass right now. A big thank you to Tia Butts of your parent company, who found a way to get this bottle of Beckstoffer Chardonnay over the border into our hands, which is not easy. And I mean, first of all, let's talk a little bit about this. So for people who aren't familiar, Andy Beckstoffer is a legendary grower in Napa Valley. He's most famous for his Tokelon vineyard. He owns a big chunk of the privately owned portion of the Tokelon vineyard. The biggest chunk is owned by Robert Mondavi, and then there's small little chunks that are privately owned, and UC Davis has some experimental stuff going on there. But if you're looking to spend your dollars, if you see Beckstoffer on a bottle of wine, it means something. It generally means quality. We're talking about at least Premier Cru or Grand Cru level if we're looking for comparisons. Okay, don't bore us. Get to the chorus. Do you have a question here, or are you just going to... I'm explaining this to the audience because a lot of people might not know about this. But the thing is, so here's the last thing, and then we'll get to the question. I'm sorry, Michael. The only people who don't know about Beckstoffer is people who are just joining us for the very first time today. I've never gone into that sort of deal. But I mean, the thing is, Beckstoffer wines are typically reds. Like, it's correct. Usually Cab Sauv. It's usually Cab. So you know what? Since I got Todd really quickly before you go. No, that was where I was going with this. What's the percentage of Chardonnay in that vineyard? So this is not from Rutherford. This is Carneros, his Carneros Lake Vineyard. So Andy and his team not only farm Rutherford, but they're one of the largest landowners down in Carneros. Also, Carneros is the southern part of the Napa Valley, the coolest climate of Napa Valley, where Chardonnay and Pinot grow predominantly. We have 80 acres there. Rich and Leslie own 80 acres right there across the avenue. When I say avenue, it's a dirt path. It's not a avenue in a city. It's just a dirt road that separates property lines. So you just cross our property and you're in the Beckstoffer property. We're probably one of the largest purchasers of grapes from those vineyards down in Las Amigas and Carneros Lake. It's because we buy a lot of Pinot from him also, and we do a vineyard designate Pinot also. So we started in Cabernet world with them, buying their Rutherford George III, and we had such a good relationship. When they bought this ranch,
arguably, I think I was one of the first guys to get a phone call say, "Hey, we just bought a new ranch and it's planted. Do you want to come look and see what you want out of it?" And it was pretty funny. Is I knew where that wine went with the previous ownership, vineyard ownership. It was owned by a corporation, and it went to a winery. And I had a good friend working there, and I just said, "Hey, I got a meeting in 15 minutes. Can you tell me your favorite blocks out of that vineyard?" And they did, and I said, "Great." I went down there, and I said, "I want this, 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 and this, and this." And he said, "Sure, you're the first one, so you get those." So, and we've been working with Andy and his team over 10 plus years. So it's Carneros. It's not Rutherford or Oakville To Kalon.
Yeah. Well, it's Chardonnay. I don't know if I'd be as excited about Oakville Chardonnay as I'm about Carneros, but the question, I guess, now that we've unpacked this a little bit, is the stories around Andy letting people put his name on the bottles are the thing of legend, about like the rules that go with it or the cost of the fruit. How did this wine come to be? And like, is Andy enthusiastic about branching his brand out to include Chardonnay to be associated with his name?
Correct. I believe he is. At least we keep doing it. And yes, you need a law degree to read one of his contracts, or just 3 nights of insomnia or something. But no, we approached him on that, and if we weren't the first in Carneros, we were one of them to do Pinot and Chardonnay with his. So we were buying it. It's not like we said, let's make a Chardonnay, call Andy and get the best fruit. The foundation of the Carneros blend is Beckstoffer fruit also. So the 3 biggest vineyards in that Carneros blend is the Frank family's portion, the Beckstoffer portion, and the San Giacomo portion. Now, since we use a lot of that, we pick the best lot we like. When the cream rises to the top, we usually pick a couple blocks every year to make into a vineyard designate. So maybe farm it a little differently, maybe a little different oak selection, a little more, sometimes a little less, depending, but different than the Carneros blend.
Well, I'll give my observation on this wine, and we'll see where the question goes. I think one of my favorite things about both of the Frank family Chardonnays that we've tasted is I still remember that first road trip that I took down to California in 2013, and I set foot in many tasting rooms, and it was the same refrain over and over again. Oh, this tastes like Burgundy. Oh, this tastes like Burgundy. And now that I've had a chance to go to Burgundy, and I'm living in a cool climate region in Niagara, I know what Burgundy tastes like, and it's typically not what Californians think Burgundy tastes like. My favorite thing about your wines, Todd, though, is they are unapologetically California in phenolics, like really tropical. You've got a little bit of the coconut. It's almost pushing into that cream corn, which I really dig. But your acids are so on point, like crisp, clean. It lingers in the best way possible. Can you talk a little bit about your style and are you shooting for Burgundy? Am I insulting you by saying that your wines taste unapologetically Californian, or is that something you're hanging your hat on?
Definitely hanging the hat. We are. I mean, there's no way around it. And it's funny, and there are people that are trying to emulate that more, and obviously Burgundy's very successful, but I mean, this is what we're given. We have plenty of sunshine. Our acids, but Carneros is a very cool region. Our sparkling comes from there also for the same reason. All our Chardonnay is coming from the south, coolest part. A lot of times we pick on acid. As most of your listeners know, there's a scale of Brix, which is roughly related to sugar, ripeness, richness, which becomes alcohol eventually. But that is a very common scale to use to when to pick. But we also have other scales, and for us in our Chardonnay, a lot of times we'll pick on acid. And it's the balance that you're seeing in that wine that I really want to see. I want that lingering fit. I want you to set the glass down and just be feeling the wine for seconds and having that reoccur. So that's our house style.
So it's my turn to step in, and being the more pessimistic Chardonnay person. Let's go with that. I want to know what the difference between the making of the Carnero Chardonnay, and not the makeup of grapes, but how you made the Carnero Chardonnay versus, let's say, this Beckstoffer.
Sure. Not much different. We let the vineyard do the work. Now, the Carneros blend that you tasted up there is a much larger production. So it's a bigger blend where we can isolate a small section of a vineyard and say, hey, over time, that section produces better wine year in and year out. Now, since it's not my first year, I know to go there first. It's like, okay, I'm pretty sure if it looks good, the growing season's good, the grapes taste good, we're going to isolate that. We're going to make it separately. And then we're going to keep an eye on it. And if it does its job, it's going to get a vineyard designate bottling. So because of experience, we know the areas. I know the areas that I like the best from these different vineyards. And then with that, we'll give it maybe a little different oak treatment. My philosophy there is if the fruit's strong, you can do things to it. If it's weak, you should lay off it a little bit. So the Carneros blend has about 33% new French oak every year. But that's a big blend. Not all vineyards are the same. I mean, there's difference. And so I think that helps with the balance. With this wine, I gave it 50% new French oak because I thought the fruit was strong enough to handle it and not dominate it.
See, that was going to be my next question. So I get a lot of that cream corn. I get a lot of that vanilla. I get that caramel notes to it. I'm going to be up front. I prefer the Carnero Chardonnay to this one. I know you're going to look at me and think I'm crazy, Andre, because I loved its fruitiness up front. I loved its acidity. This one does have great acidity, but right up front, it's all that caramel and vanilla and butterscotch and cream corn. And
can I ask what vintage you're tasting?
2022.
Yeah, okay. So that you're kind of that makes total sense. So that's not going to be released for quite a while. You may have it up there, but that's surprising. Our current release is the 21, or that may just be getting into the market. So this will, I haven't even really started drinking my 22. I'm just scratching the 21s now.
So you're saying we've committed infanticide.
Yeah, so we're gonna have to retaste this in a while. But I mean, one of the nice things about this, though, like if I can go to the defense of this wine is it is significantly bigger than the Carneros. The Carneros has this elegance to it. Like it still has that Californian flavor profile, but this elegance is a little bit softer.
Well, I liked it because the fruit was right up front, it was in your face, and that's what this one. Maybe Todd's right. Maybe you give it a little bit of time, maybe a year or two in the bottle, and finally now we're going to start seeing everything meld a little bit better.
But I am getting the fruit on this. It's got the
more on the back end. It's more on the back end than the front.
No, but I'm getting that on the front. Like the oak treatment's singing pretty loudly, but it's not out of balance.
I'm going to just say I really love the acidity that you've got in this wine. So
at 14.5 alcohol, I had to double check because when you talk about picking on acidity, you're not usually getting the bricks to pull 14.5 alcohol.
Oh no, in California. See that? Well, no, though, when I say you have high acidities, I'm kind of trying to let them come down a little bit. Thus, the sugar's going up a little bit. If I picked any earlier, I believe that acidity would be out of balance to the other end versus in line.
Gotcha.
So I'm going to get off of the Chardonnay for a bit here. And let's talk about growing Cabernet and also dealing with that California heat and alcohol levels, because they must be going up. And I think I've started noticing on bottles they are going up. How do you manage, the higher alcohols and keeping everything in balance?
I think that's one of our California, Napa in particular, greatest challenges for sure. Like I said, we have an abundance of sun. I'm sure some European countries would love to take a little percentage away from us and help them out. So that's always. So farming is number one. getting the right road. We got to protect the vines from heat. And canopy shade does that. Shade cloth can do that. So farming's a good way. Cover crops, keep the heat off the soil. So you know how in France, particularly Bordeaux, you plant low, so the radiant heat of the soil, Germany, helps warm the vine. We're the opposite. Our vines are up a little bit. We want to keep the radiant heat off the vines. Trying to pick with acidity and ripeness without. I'm not a big pyrazine guy, so we have to get ripe enough to get out of the pyrazines without getting too high alcohol. Blending helps a lot. We've got winemaking techniques that can help that too. Ideally, the best farming, best picking decision makes my job down the line a lot easier. If we don't do those things up front, then I'm working really hard to recover and maybe fix some issues. But so if we get the ripe, I like picking ripe grapes, but I don't like raisins. I want full ripeness without raisiny, overripe, porty characters.
So, yeah, I got so many questions about cab.
No, but I think we should get to the questions about cab. If I can segue us into it, because I do think a logical segue is we talked about your oak treatment.
Yep.
And 50% French oak on the Beckstoffer. One thing I noticed with the Napa Valley Cab Sauv that we had at lunch was that it wasn't a Parker wine. The fruit was front and center. There was none of that charred note that you get from the big Parker wines, the big vanilla notes that go with it.
The tannins weren't too aggressive.
No, everything was soft and ready to rock.
And I don't remember the alcohol being super crazy on that one either.
Yeah, that's my soapbox. Would you say a winemaker soapbox? If you notice the alcohol, I think we have work to do. But just because there's a number on the label doesn't mean it's wrong.
Correct.
If you taste, it's no different than the oak. If you think that wine is a little too oaky for you, it probably is. But if somebody else drinks and goes, no, it's balanced. So my job is not to overdo anything. Is try to have everything in line and balanced, and alcohol would be one of those things. Oak would be one. Fruit would be another. There's 100 decisions, and I'm hoping we're making them all with balance as the primary goal.
Well, my question for you, because you've definitely succeeded with what we tasted today in 2024. You've been the winemaker at Frank Family for 20 plus years, and I alluded to it in the intro about the influence Robert Parker has had on Californian wines. Leslie talked about the Frank Family style. Has that style evolved in 20 years? Are you using less oak now than you were back then? Or has it been the rest of the world responding to a different style?
Fortunately, we have. So the answer of evolving is yes. We're constantly trying to get better, but for 20 years now, that Napa Cabernet and that Carnero Chard has been about a third new every year. It really hasn't varied much because we were never in that group of trying to catch, catch a certain critic's eye. We weren't trying to do that particularly for that. Now, believe me, we read all those things and we looked at it, but our Napa Cab is 33% new oak. Our Rutherford wine is 50%. We can go up with Winston Hill and Patriarch, but we're still never close to the 100, or we're definitely not 200%, where you hear that sometimes. So the goal has been balance. Now we try to get a little bit better balanced every year, with equipment, with picking decisions, with farming, with winemaking. So we are evolving, but we didn't chase something and now we have to remove from that. We never really went after that.
So also with 20 years of experience with the same fruit you've been dealing with the whole time, what have you noticed in the alcohol rising? Is this what the big problem is with let's call it global warming or climate change that California gets, or is it not that? It's
honestly,
other things.
honestly, first of all, I haven't done this, but what I'm going to say is if I go get a 2003 or 2004 Carnero Chardonnay, I bet it's 14.4. And if you get the 23 that I think you tasted when Leslie was up there, probably says 14. That's what says 14.5 plus or minus. So we've had global warming. There is climate change, but California's always has more sun and heat than it's a southern Mediterranean climate, not a northern European climate. So we've always had the sun. It does, if you pick grapes, again, using this scale, we use, let's just say 24 bricks. That's not overripe. That's not, that'll give you 14 alcohol. And that's just in the normal range. So if you're picking a lot less, sometimes then your acidity is going to be out of balance. Again, it comes into each individual's style that they want, their location. I don't think 14 is overblown. So we're in that camp.
I'm actually with you on that. And when you talk about pyrazines, it's something that actually Michael more so than me. We live in Cab Franc country up here in Niagara. Yep. I don't mind a little pyrazine in Cab Franc, but you get pyrazine in Merlot or Cab Sauv, it is beyond awful. Like
I don't want it much in my Franc either. I'll take a little back end pyrazine, but I don't want it up front. I don't want to be drinking a glass of green pepper juice. If I want a salad, I'll make a salad. It's rare, but I don't want salad in my glass of wine.
Michael really doesn't like his vegetables. I mean, let's be real.
It's very rare that I go, I'll have a V8. So
yeah, but so winemakers' challenge is to outgrow the pyrazines. If you asked anybody, I don't think they really want 15 plus alcohol wines. So you just have to balance it, and it comes into winemaking and farming.
I think to the point that you were making, though, is that you can sometimes get the 15 or 15 and a half where it is balanced. But what you said, as the consumer not noticing the alcohol, is where you've done your job properly. Like if Mother Nature gives us a crazy, ridiculous summer where you're forced to make something a little bit more raisiny because it was hot and dry, the alcohols are going to go up. Your challenge is to balance it out, right?
Yeah, that's our job. But if it just comes out, what's the alcohol? Have you tried it?
Yeah.
How many people? What's the pH? It's no different with sparkling wines and champagnes. The first question: how many grams of dose? Have you tried it yet?
Yeah.
Yeah, taste is king. Taste is king. Taste is king. So, yeah, we have a writer here who's always about the numbers, and it just doesn't do it. The average consumer doesn't care about the pH. The average consumer doesn't care about alcohol. They want a good tasting glass of wine that they can afford. And
by the way, we're fans of this writer, which is why we didn't mention his name. Yeah, he is very pedantic in his approach.
If he's listening, he would know exactly who we're talking about.
He would know who we're talking about.
Yeah, he's also down to lot numbers. Like if you look under the label for lot numbers to see the differences between them. So
okay, so let's go something I guess a little bit more topical. We're recording this in early November. First off, is your harvest completely finished?
We are complete. All the fruit is in the barn. This was a very early harvest and very quick harvest and very good. We had a very hot July, so that worried us a little bit. So we might have lost a little fruit from a fruit set point of view in the Chardonnays, but the weather during the growing season, the real growing season and the harvest was pretty good. We had one little peak heat wave, but didn't last long. And then we had an extended one late at the end of the year, but it won't define the vintage. The vintage is, in my opinion, is one of the best. The colors are great. The good thing for us now, it was 70-something degrees today. All the fruit's in the barn. All our wines are in barrel. We're doing housekeeping and cleaning. We have interns from Italy, Portugal, and America, and they're helping get the place cleaned up before they finish up. And I think everybody in Napa and California, I think, will love the quality of the wines this year.
I love hearing cleaning. Like, that's something I'm learning more and more, is if you listen to a winemaker talk about cleaning, the chances are the wines are going to be better. Like,
well, there's a winemaker in Italy, in Montefalco, who he says there's three major points about being a good winery, and it's be clean, be clean, be clean.
Yeah.
That's what he says. After that, as you said, that's where a good wine can be made.
If you don't like cleaning or didn't clean when you started in this career, you wouldn't last in the career. Yeah, you would. Yes. So it's a great discipline.
So if I can get into something maybe a little, I guess a little contentious for us, but I don't want it to be difficult. I'm still trying to get into Napa Pinot, California Pinot, and I have a really hard time with it. And it's something that, as a writer, I've learned to just, like, the regionality of palates is definitely a thing. Y'all in California really like what you're doing with Pinot down there, and obviously up here in Niagara, we're working with a whole different can of worms. Same thing with Oregon. Is Pinot at risk with climate change, or is it just something where the style is going to evolve with more heat, and it's just going to be massive Pinots in California? And is that ever going to change?
Oh yeah, I think I think it's in the process. Again, we're unabashedly California. It's not Burgundy, so I would put it next Chardonnay. Same conversation we had earlier. It's California. Now, I'm not going to say, we did go through. Let's pick it super ripe. I think we're trying to back that down a little bit. We're not trying to have the biggest. When you mentioned a wine writer. The bigger the wine, the better. With Pinot Noir now, I think we're learning to tone that back a little bit as a group, I'm saying. Growing it in the right region. So coastal, again, ours is Carneros. From the Lewis Vineyard that Rich and Leslie own, you can see San Pablo Bay, and across the bay is San Francisco. Again, same growers. For the Chard is the Pinot. It's basically some Beckstoffer. We're their largest purchaser. Their Pinot, San Giacomo, we purchase a lot. These are all cool climate vineyards for Northern California, and I think we are trying to draw it back a little, make it. We try to have as much freshness as we can, as much energy as we can, retain some of that acidity.
So, André was trying to be contentious here. So at our tasting, I would say that the Pinot is probably, was my least favorite of the four.
But I mean,
wines.
that's why I tried to temper it, though. Is like, you and I definitely have that regional palate. You and I drink a lot of Niagara Pinot, and as a result, we drink a lot of Burgundy. And it's something I learned with that trip to Burgundy is. And I'm lucky, and my wallet appreciates it, is I will drink a Côte de Beaune before a Côte de Nuit any day of the week, because that's what I've grown up drinking. That's what I've drank as a wine writer is, if I see a 12% Pinot Noir from Niagara or 12% Pinot Noir from Côte de Beaune, I'm super stoked on that. Spending $500 on a killer Côte de Nuit often, and I've had a chance to taste quite a few of these now, is often a little bit too much. And I think what I was just saying, what the reason I'm saying this is, like, I think there's I also was not a big fan of your Pinot Noir, but I don't think there was anything wrong with it.
No, there was nothing wrong with it.
I think there was something wrong with Michael and I, because we're not used to drinking it.
Well,
no. What? Maybe I can. What vintage of that do you try?
Oh, dang! I would say it was probably the 21, but Andre's going to look it up. I just, I find that as much as I hear and see people collecting, I do wine inventories for people, and they're collecting California Pinot, and I've tasted a number of California Pinot. It's such a varying style. There's no one particular linear way of making California Pinot but most people, I think of it as just higher fruit content, almost sweeter, but not sweet, but sweeter in the fruit category. And I like that yours wasn't, but it was still for me hard to detect it as as Pinot.
It was California.
It was California, right? It was just unabashedly California, and I believe it was. I think it was the 21.
I think it was probably the 21 as well.
Oh, then that's our style.
Okay.
And that's why I tried to be diplomatic in this as well. It's just like, I don't want to be ignorant as a Canadian wine writer to be like, Todd, why aren't you making Canadian style Pinot?
Again, same thing. It's that alcohol's in the low 14s.
There's got to be a delicacy to Pinot, and I don't think, but I would say that there's been some California Pinots that I've totally loved.
But okay, I'm actually going to go to Todd's defense after I set all this up. There doesn't have to be a delicacy to Pinot. You taste like some Claude Vougeot or some Vos Romanée. There is nothing restrained about those, and California is just right in that part of that party. I
think Oregon's figured out Pinot. I'm just saying it right in the States anyway. So where I'm going to move on to is one of my favorite grapes is Zinfandel. I have heard that especially in Napa, they're ripping up a lot of Zinfandel for a cab because Zinfandel's like a cheap grape. It doesn't bring in the big dollars. What has been your experience with Zinfandel 1 and 2?
And also, is that true? Are people ripping up Zinfandel and planting Cab Sauv instead?
Yeah. So yes, it is true. It's not in abundance, and it's economical. If you have an acre of land, and if the average Napa Valley Cabernet goes for $9,000 a ton, and the average Zinfandel goes for $4,000 a ton, and you're a grower, and you go to the bank and say, I need a loan, he's going to say, really? You want to plant Zin when you can double your money with Cabernet? Now, with cycles, as always goes, then they overplant Cabernet, and then it'll start. But so yes, so as vines age out for various reasons, and people have opportunities, chances are they've planted Cabernet. We're fortunate that we have some long-term growers, and it's all Napa fruit, but it's in the outer skirts of the Napa Valley. It's not down the main corridor. It's not in Rutherford or Oakville. It's on the outskirts of Napa Valley, where they can make money growing it. It grows really well there, and so that works for us. But it's difficult to grow the brand of Zinfandel in Napa because you keep losing vineyards.
Todd, were those ballpark prices you just threw out sort of?
They're pretty close. I mean, ballpark, they're not, but yeah, $9,000 a ton. Man,
we got to realign things up here. Like I can get Chardonnay for like $2,500 a ton.
So Chardonnay would be in the high threes down here in Napa.
In Napa, okay.
High threes, but Zinfandel's it's in the 4 to mid 4s, and then Cab's around 9.
So just because I'm interested, where would you say if you could work with some Zinfandel fruit from anywhere in California, where would you do it?
Well, I only know Napa. I think we can do some really great stuff in Napa. There's a great property up on Green and Red. There's a hillside there in Childs Valley. We're just on the other side of that hill from them. We put a little splash of Petite Syrah on ours, but we don't want more than a splash because Petite Syrah is a pretty dominant grape, and I make a Petite Syrah, so I don't need to make 2. I want to make Zinfandel. But it does add a structure and a color element. Zinfandel is not the darkest grape in the world, so when you see a really dark Zin, chances are it's got other things in it too. So, and we're a French oak house with the Zinfandel too, so it's a little lighter touch with the oak. Again, we're searching for balance. So as far as where else. And I know Napa. When we bought a Rutherford vineyard, there was rows of Zinfandel planted in that. And we did the exact same thing. We're in the middle of Rutherford, and the vineyard we bought had Chardonnay, Zinfandel, you name it, it had it. And when we pulled it out, we made it a Bordeaux vineyard. So we've done it ourselves.
Your favorite wine in the portfolio, Todd? Come on. Don't give me this. They're all my babies.
Something that you're like.
Yeah.
The one I bring to when I get invited out, it's usually the Winston Hill.
There you go.
And that's
which is
a Cab
which is
Sauv?
a red blend off of
A red
the
blend.
Franks.
Blend of what? Blend of what?
It's a Bordeaux blend. It's predominantly Cabernet Sauvignon, but it's got a splash of Franc, a splash of Bordeaux, and a splash of Merlot. And it's our flagship, and it's not the most expensive, but it's the one I bring to dinner.
Got it. All right.
Todd, it's been an absolute pleasure to speak with the man behind the wines we enjoyed in September. And next time I'm down in California, I will definitely come knock on your door. And
I was going to ask to stay and raid your cellar too.
Not even that. You know what? I would love to sit down and talk a bit more about Pinot, because I think it's just something that I don't understand as much as I do, and it's something like I feel like I should like it, and I don't get it yet. And I think you might be the person to help me wrap my head around it.
Well, my cellar's a pretty tough combination. You just got to turn right and pull. So if you can break the combo, you're in. So
thank you, Todd. It was a pleasure.
All right, pleasure to meet you both.
A pleasure to meet us both. That's a nice way to end it.
You don't hear that often.
Yeah, it's not often that people say that too.
I don't know we'll be invited again.
No, but I'm dead serious.
We were invited everywhere twice. The second is to apologize, but
I was serious about making my way down to California. Like, I would like to sit down with Leslie Frank to talk more about Chardonnay, but I do want to talk to Todd about California Pinot, and like, this is one where we're putting it to the audience. Like, if you are listening to this podcast and you have a California Pinot that you really dig, that is that warm California style.
If you say Meiomi, please don't even bother.
No, but I mean, you and I, we talked to Andy Pay earlier this year.
Yeah.
You and I both lost our shit over those Pinots. And the thing is,
that's a good word for it. Yeah.
Well, the West Sonoma coast is different than Napa Valley. I want to find someone in Napa who's like doing a really great job, and I think I'd be curious to learn more. But on that note, I'm André Prue, AndreWineReview.ca.
And I'm Michael Pincus of MichaelPincusWineReview.com. You can find us on social media. He's André Wine Review. I'm the Grape Guy.
Most places.
Yeah. Don't forget about Patreon. We would really love your support.
Patreon.com/2guystalkingwine. Michael and I are already talking about the future. You can hear how great this podcast sounds. We're using the new Mini Fuse 2 that I picked up for the Hamilton studio. I paid for it out of my pocket because we didn't get enough support this year to upgrade our equipment. But hopefully in 2025, we'll pick up some new supporters. We know there's a lot of people listening to the podcast. Come on, $5 a month. That's not a lot of money to pay for your favorite two guys talking wine.
That's right. Your favorite two guys, not just talking wine. Your favorite two guys. We are the favorite two guys in your ears. That's
all right.
Got to be it.
All right. So take us away, Michael.
Again, thank you to Todd. Thank you to Frank family. Thank you to California for being such a wonderful place to make wine. Thank you to Chardonnay for giving Andre a mission in life. And good night.
Thanks for listening. Please subscribe to Two Guys Talking Wine on iTunes.
Two Guys Talking Wine is produced by Jim Ray, Adam Duran, and Ken Little.